Welcome to Spinning Back Clique, where each week here at MMA Junkie, we take a spin through the biggest news stories in MMA. On today's episode, the UFC middleweight title goes back to South Africa. And though the big one got away, City Kickboxing did register 2 wins. Also, Pereira versus Rountree, October 5th, Salt Lake City. Wait, what? That's right. We'll talk about all that here. Hello, everyone. Gorgeous George here on the con, and look at the distinguished panel we have for you today. Goes from MMA Junkie Radio. He's in the fight capital of Las Vegas. Danny Segura from Hablemos MMA. He's here with us as well. He's down in the South, down in Miami. The 305's in the house. Matt Wells from the editorial side of MMA Junkie. He's back. He's coming to us live from Dallas, Texas. All right. Can't forget me, mate. Kamikaze on the ones and two. London in the house, in it. But before we get started, if you would kindly hit that like button, I promise to never do my horrible British accent again. In fact, why stop there? Smash that subscribe button, and you'll have access to our whole library of videos, including past SBCs. Guys, Saturday night or Sunday morning, if you were in the RAC arena, whatever it's called, Dricus Du Plessis defeated Israel Adesanya to defend his UFC middleweight title. DDP submitted the last style bender via knockdown and eventual RNC. That's a rear naked choke. It was in round 4 of the title fight. Let's hear your reaction, boys. I'm curious if you like this title fight as much as I did. We go to Matt Wells down in the Big D, man. What was your reaction of this fight as the whole fight was unfolding and the end?
I mean, it was an enjoyable fight. You had to be happy with how it unfolded. It was a competitive title fight, and I think that's what everybody tunes in for at the end of the day for a big pay-per-view, right? You want to see a real championship caliber fight, and I think that's what we got. I also think a lot of people tuned in to see what was Izzy going to look like after his layoff. I mean, if you can really even call it a layoff. It was a lengthy layoff for him because his activity is always so high. And he's been in title fight after title fight after title fight, all the way back since 2020, 2019. Every single fight's been a title fight for him, right? It was an incredible performance from him up until it wasn't, right? I mean, I think he was very sharp offensively. I think he was sharp defensively until DDP started landing a couple of those big looping hooks and really kind of rocked him. I think there was a couple of punches in there that he poker faced really well. But as we can kind of see, like as the fight wore on, he kind of just slowed down a little bit. He stopped countering as much, and that's when DDP really took advantage and just wrestled him to the ground and eventually sunk in that RNC. But I think it was an enjoyable fight to watch, and whether you were on Izzy's side or DDP's side, I mean, it was a fun fight, and the respect shown at the end kind of proved that, hey, this was a good competition. All the bad blood that we saw beforehand was really left in the weeks prior for the most part, right? But I think it all came down to just a solid, pure competition between two high-level middleweights, and I think you got to be happy with the product that we got.
Let's hear some more reactions. Danny Segura, ahora tú.
I liked it. I thought it was a great title fight. It was fun. It was high-level, competitive, as Matt Wells said. But I want to add something. I think Matt Wells pretty much summed it up perfectly here, pretty much how I feel about the fight. But I also want to add the aspect outside of it. I was really concerned, and we talked about in the last SBC episode how, where there are concerns about how ugly the buildup could get. And there was certainly some of this type of talk around it. We saw some stuff in media day, a little bit of the presser, but it didn't get to a territory where things were going to get like really bad or really ugly. I think all in all, the buildup was well. And then the aftermath also, as Matt mentioned, it was quite nice seeing them kind of bury the hatchet and both kind of celebrate each other. And the fact that, they are very different, but they are from Africa, and they represent the continent. So all in all, great for the middleweight division. I am curious to see where Adesanya goes next. And so does Du Plessis. I'm guessing we'll talk about that in a little bit, but yeah, I loved it. Great title fight.
And goes, you and I did the watch along, and I mean, this fight went back and forth. It had everything, including a finish, so no controversy. We're not bitching about judges, although we might when we bring up the Tai Tuivasa Jairzinho Rosenstruck fight. But give the SBC fans your reaction to this historical fight.
Well, gentlemen, As you can see by my background, the gloves are off. I kind of disagree with you guys. Listen, I thought this fight was very entertaining. Okay. However, I don't think we were watching high level MMA, and that was
Oh,
a little depressing for me because don't snicker, George, because you're going to be the first one that's going to get served if you do that. I'm going to tell you this right now. DDP finds a way to find to win ugly fights. Can't take that away from him, right? He gets the job done. But I don't think anybody was sitting here saying this dude's going to rule the division or anything like that, right? I mean, it probably wasn't the greatest performance. He got the job done. Okay. The expression of, you know, that guy's a dog. That kind of describes him, right? That's the way he fights. If you look at other animals, right? A tiger, the way they stalk their prey, that's like an Islam Makhachev for a John Jones. That's not DDP. DDP is like a honey badger. Still gets the job done, so you have to give him his credit. But it's going to catch up to him eventually. And I think you guys have to agree with that. Eventually, this is going to catch up with him. Israel Adesanya, I was actually enjoying. Danny was talking about the lead up to this, and I thought it was going to get ugly. I actually enjoyed that Izzy kind of took his time a little bit. He was a little bit more calm, and I think that transferred into the cage. He used the distance well. I like that he put a jab in his face every time DDP came forward, but he didn't really have that plan B, guys. And when things started to go off the rails, he didn't look too good, man. I mean, defensively, he was taking some shots. I know he likes to get out of the way, and that's one of the advantages of being a long, lanky fighter. But you got to move that head because move out of the way, you're going to dodge that first punch, maybe even that second one, but that third one's going to land. Eventually, a guy like DDP is going to get there, and he just wasn't making that adjustment. And when the fight hit the ground, it just wasn't a good look for a guy that we constantly talk about being possibly one of the greatest to ever do it. You're going to have to compare him to a guy like Anderson Silva. When you do that, we have to nitpick these things. So again, very entertaining fight, but I don't know that we were watching high level MMA either.
do one of you want to talk to the kid, or should I? Or because
Yeah,
I loved it. Go ahead, Matt Wells.
Yeah, I'll chime in a little bit. I think one of the things that we kind of underappreciate from DDP is that he looks a little awkward. He takes himself off of balance, when he starts swinging these big hooks, and he looks a little awkward a lot of the times. But I think one of the things, like I went back and rewatched it, he times that stuff very well, and defensively, he's also really good defensively. Like he kept that guard up really high and tight while Izzy was coming forward. And that's not Izzy's best game. Izzy doesn't come forward at his best. He's always his best countering, right? So he was timing really well his own opportunities to strike and attack Izzy and really just bum rush him like he did at the end there, swinging those big old left hands. It was very well timed stuff when Izzy was off balance and Izzy wasn't really ready to have his feet set. And even though DDP, like I said, he takes himself off of balance, I think he calculates the stuff really well, as awkward as it looks. So I think we got to, kind of just look at DDP a little bit closer and just kind of notice that he does a lot of stuff well, even though it doesn't look as technically sound as we would like to see.
I can't take it. I can't take it away
here.
from him.
Goes, the style might not be pretty, but it's effective. It's effective, right? I've been in gyms. I remember, I'm not going to mention which gym specifically or which fighter. I mean, I don't even know the name of the fighter, but I was waiting around for an interview, and I remember a coach talking to like a younger fighter and saying, man, your style points are like 10, but your actual fighting is not. And then he was sparring some guy that didn't know as much as him and was kind of throwing wild punches, but he was connecting more. And the guy that was kind of moving around and looking good was barely connecting and not doing good. So I would say the same thing about Dricus Du Plessis. His style points are probably on the floor. No disrespect, but his fighting points are way up there. They work, man. He beat Whitaker and Adesanya. Finished both of them. You have to be skilled to do that. How many middleweights today can say they finished both Whitaker and Adesanya, the two greatest middleweights in recent times? Not many, man.
Well, here's the thing. Goes and we talked about this yesterday, and I understood some of his points, and Kamikaze's B-roll here kind of supported it because DDP looks awful, especially when he's doing his third and fourth punch and he's reaching, right? But I guess it was his comment of saying not high level MMA. What I saw was two guys that fought through adversity. DDP was hurt at one point. I thought he was going to get finished.
Yeah.
He came back. I saw DDP huffing and puffing, but still in round 4 was strong. I saw Israel in round 1, with some decent takedown defense, the ability to get up, and then these guys they had pinpoint kicks because who was it? I think Matt said DDP's got a really nice high guard, right? But what did Izzy do? He started kicking him to the body. It was
Ripping to the body.
accurate,
Those
and
were
he was
nasty.
slapping him. He was slapping him with the hands. So I saw some beautiful techniques out there, and I was on the edge of my seat. The rivalry was out the window, and I could see both guys. I knew they were going to get along at the end. I didn't think they were going to be best buds, but I knew they were going to get along because you could just see it in their eyes. Like both Izzy was looking at DDP, and DDP was going, "Oh man, that's a bad motherfucker." You know, like I gotta respect. And I saw that after like 3 to 5 minutes. Like everything else was out the window. I knew they would shake hands. It was a thing of beauty. That's why I can't believe he keeps saying it wasn't high level MMA. I think what he's saying is it did get sloppy at times, but I thought I saw
Very
high
sloppy.
level.
I don't disagree with anything you guys are saying. All I'm trying to say is it did get very sloppy. I thought DDP looked very, very tired. I actually thought Israel Adesanya looked pretty good cardio wise. But when that fight hit the floor, man, I mean, let's be honest. Like, we're talking creme de la creme, right, of the division. That choke wasn't even under the chin. And granted, yeah, that hurts. It does. It applies a lot of pressure. But that's what we talk about some of the greats, the GSPs, the Anderson Silvas, the John Jones of the world, Demetrius Johnson. They seem to rough it. They rough through those moments. They go through them. And it just didn't seem like it to me, guys. I'm sorry.
I'll tell you this. Point to me a single DDP fight in the UFC where he doesn't look like he wanted to just say, "Hey, time out. Let me catch a breath real quick." He looks like that in
He could
every
use
fight
20.
at some point. It's
Yeah,
actually
he
kind
could
of
use
amazing.
a 20, man, or something, because he looks like he's huffing and puffing, and he expended a lot of energy in round one. But it's a testament to how he just digs deep, man. I don't know how he does it, honestly.
Crazy. I think his size, man. His size is one thing that's underrated, right? You know, we hear all the time, like you see this guy in person, especially when he's not in a fight week. It's a very large human being, right? And he cuts down to 185. And then I get like, man, that power must be something crazy because the way Izzy just started turning away from those shots and not trying to counter anymore, that power's got to be something different, man.
Let's have some fun. Chat room, you guys can participate as well. Let's hear your comments. Did you like the fight? Do you agree with us three? Or do you see Goz's point? Maybe it wasn't as high level as what we're thinking. Let us know. Some of these good comments and questions will get put on here onto the show. But we got to talk about a few other things. What's next for both guys? Danny, tell us about DDP. I mean, is it a slam dunk, Sean Strickland? Or can the winner of Khamzat Chimaev and Robert Whitaker do something to, stir the pot, to steal the shine away? Because they fight, let's see, it's in October. It's at the end of October at UFC 308.
It should have been Whitaker. I'm saying is Whitaker. A lot of the media agrees with me. The fans agree with me. Even Dricus Du Plessis saying Robert Whitaker is getting the short end of the stick there because we do know that Dana White said that Sean Strickland is likely going to be next. Now, we know that sometimes UFC brass says one thing and then another thing is done. But just the way things are looking right now, the fact that Whitaker is booked to fight Khamzat Chimaev, the fact that last month was a title eliminator bout and now it's not labeled that, it all points that, yes, Sean Strickland is the next challenger. And look, I don't hate it if there weren't any other contenders out there, but at this point in time, Robert Whitaker has done exactly the same thing that Sean Strickland has done, which is beat Paulo Costa. And then on top of that, he beat Aliskerov, a guy that wasn't defeated in the UFC and looking good. I think he deserves a chance, but I think Strickland's going to get the fight. And look, either way, they're going to be both good fights, so it's hard to complain. It's not like we're getting a lesser product here with Strickland, but in terms of merit, sporting merit, yeah, Whitaker should have been it.
Danny, what about the argument that Strickland took him to a split, whereas Whitaker got finished, and all within the last year?
Sure, but I mean, I think a lot of people watching that first fight with Whitaker, and I guess we would only know if they do rematch. A lot of people think that fight, the result of that fight, and no, I'm not trying to discredit Du Plessis, but a lot of people think Whitaker had an off night. A lot of people think that fight wasn't indicative of what that fight should actually look like. And maybe maybe Du Plessis wins every time, but that's the way it went down. And we do feel like, knowing what we know of Robert Whitaker, should be a more competitive fight than what it was that first time. So, yeah, fair point, but I'm still sticking with Whitaker here.
You agree, Matt?
I mean, it sucks because DDP, just fought both of these guys, right? But I mean, obviously, when you look at the results, The split decision is the one you got to run back before the finish.
Goes, you were going to chime in?
Yeah, I'd like to echo some of the sentiments that I've heard here. Look, I think sometimes when you have two guys that sort of both make sense, you can make a case for both of those guys. What tends to happen is the guy that plays ball best probably gets the shot, right? We don't know where this fight could end up. But the guy that ends up playing ball that says, "Okay, I'll do it," or the guy that says, "I want more money," or "I want this," sometimes those are the guys that get kind of shafted. They kind of get put to the side. I think both guys make sense, but I feel like they have kind of laid the foundation for Sean Strickland, and it is tough that a lot of us look back and we see what happened in that fight for Bobby Knuckles. But I think that what he's done since then has helped us kind of erase that a little bit from our memory. Not totally, but a little bit, right? I mean, he seems like he has made adjustments in his game, even mentally. He's saying all the right things. So I think both of them. I just want to see both of them happen at some point. We'll see. But Dricus, like again, he gets the job done. These are two monsters that are waiting. I think it's going to be fun. This division is a division that doesn't get talked about that much with everything going on at like bantamweight and featherweight, but it is kind of quietly a lot of fun, guys.
Beastman in the chat says, as crazy as it sounds, Strickland's probably the best challenge for DDP, as he also has this too, along with the cardio. It's crazy, really, when you think about it. Young Barrymore says Goez is off his rocker.
Go Wes.
Goez, yeah. Steve Williams says, agreed. I could see DDP as champ for a while. Kaneman Ryder says, I think DDP beats any other striking base fighter at middleweight right now. Play-Doh says DDP can probably defend until Kaio gets there. And Kaio Barajo has a big fight coming up this weekend against Jared Cannonier. That's a decent take right there. I'm going to use that name here in just a second. Not the Play-Doh name, the other ones. Goes, let's stick with you. Where does Adesanya go from here? Should he retire and maybe reconsider that or not? Like, he seems like he only wants to stick around if he can be a champ again. So along with where does he go from here, do you think he'll be a champ again?
Man, I mean, look, I think it all comes down to what he wants to be remembered for, right? He's a Hall of Famer. There's no way around that. If you want to be one of the greats, if that's the case, then I think you have to revamp your situation, maybe immerse yourself in grappling, right? The takedowns just came a little too easily. I think mentally he's getting to the place where he needs to be successful. But I wouldn't retire. I think there's still money to be made, but he does have to kind of address some of these deficiencies. Everybody in that division's tough. They've all caught up.
Okay. What do you think, Matt Wells? Do you think Izzy should retire? Has he done enough? Maybe reconsider his decision, because it does seem like at times it's the foot out, then the foot back in, and back and forth. What do you think?
February 9th, 2019, Anderson Silva passed the torch to Israel Adesanya. And it feels like we're kind of in the same space that Anderson was at the end of his UFC run, which means, yes, he's still a very high level athlete, but does he still have that championship fire? I don't believe so, because if you look back at his post-fight interviews after he lost to Jan Blachowicz, after he lost to Alex Pereira, it seemed like he was really pissed off, like that he knows he could get this win. He knows he can go out there and get the job done. Here, it was a very different mindset. He seemed very content with the result. He's very happy. Sure, he was happy that his teammates won, which is very cool. Obviously, you love to see that support for your fellow teammates that got the job done on the night. But for him personally, it didn't seem like he had that same fire that we heard before after losses. And, I'm not saying that he can't still go out there and beat high-level competition with that different mindset, but it just seems like he doesn't have that same desire to recapture the title anymore, which is fine because, if he wants to go out there and have fun fights and just be entertaining, that's great too, because I think everybody will still love that from him. But to say that, man, I just didn't get that vibe that Izzy wants to be on top and rule this division anymore.
Mm-hmm. He's in a tough spot for sure. He needs Whitaker to win. That's the guy he owns 2 wins over, but he's lost to Strickland. He's lost to the last 2 champions, the current one, DDP, and the last one, Sean Strickland. Danny, how about UFC in Africa? They have an African champ in DDP, and then he's got an opponent that he can fight who fought well, guys. If you look at the judges' scorecards before the finish, 2 judges gave him round 1, 2 judges gave him round 3. Now, as confusing as that might seem, it's going to get even worse. Going into the third round, 2 judges had it 29-28 for DDP. You just got to look at it. It's the way the judges turn in their cards. But my point is, he was winning rounds according to the judges. So does he need to be on the UFC card when they go to Africa? I'm talking about Israel Adesanya along with DDP.
It depends where they go, but yes, both are big representatives of the sport, and I think it all comes down to whether it's going to be a pay-per-view or not, right? If it's going to be a pay-per-view, UFC has made it a tradition that there kind of has to be a title fight on the line. So in that case, you would want DDP on there because he obviously has the belt. But if they were to go to a big fight night like they do sometimes with these Abu Dhabi cards, Adesanya could easily headline that as well. So I think either or. I think probably for Adesanya's bucket list, he would want that. I mean, as well as Dricus Du Plessis, but it seems that that's sort of weighed a little bit more on Adesanya, or at least he's been more vocal about it over the years. So, yeah, I'd love to see it. And the time is now. Look, at some point we had 3 African champions, right? Ngannou, Kamaru Usman, and Adesanya. Now we only have one with Dricus Du Plessis. So I'm not saying, all of a sudden Du Plessis is going to lose his belt and there's not going to be any more African champions. But we know how quickly things can change in this sport. So if you really do have desires to go there, you best use what you got right now. So
Yes.
I hope that it's sooner rather than later. And yeah, I think either fighter can easily participate on the card.
It's gotta happen, guys. This is the one of the 3 kings that needs to fight in Africa. No disrespect to the others. We know that Ngannou's now in Africa, in the PFL, and he's serving as what is it called? Like the chairperson of PFL Africa and what the PFL wants to do. And then you have Kamaru Usman, who I don't want to say he's out of the title picture because now Leon Edwards is out of the way, and who knows, he might get in there against Bilal, but he has lost 3 straight. I think Izzy's going to see this fight, watch it, and then there's going to be a fire in his belly. I think he's going to realize, hold on a second, I can compete with this guy. I just got to zig instead of zag or vice versa. Here's the path. Tell me if you guys agree. Either give me a fist bump or give me that Frank Mir face. He needs to fight Kyle Barallo if Kyle Barallo beats Jared Cannonier. If he beats him and finishes him, I think he can get to DDP, and I'd love to see that fight in South Africa. I think the UFC would run it back again. If Cannonier wins, well, I don't know, maybe because he already fought Cannonier. We kind of already seen that matchup, but I think he needs to take out one of the top guns that's moving up, and I think Kyle Barallo might be his ticket. What do you guys think? Yeah, or this?
Yeah. Why not? I'm with
I'll
it.
give you a lazy fist bump.
Danny, you
with it.
disagree?
I'm with the guys down here. I'm with them.
Okay, geez, not one of those fist bumps was good. Just Matt kind of even made it to the camera.
Yeah.
Like
Oh.
it was a layup, but we felt you should have dunked. It was one of those fist bumps where you just kind of go, good job.
I need to see the results of this fight this weekend.
Yeah, we first have to see what happens.
I think Izzy's going to come back and he's going to see that he was doing well. He got finished. It's tough, and he was trying to be classy. And I don't know if they went overboard in your guys' opinion there with the bromance afterwards. They're exchanging jackets like soccer players exchange jerseys. I get it. It was cool, but I wanted him to save a little bit of that energy because I really felt like after that fight, I personally needed to see part 2. But I think everyone would like to see a part 2 on that continent, man. This is the fight that'll take us there.
Maybe they did go a little bit. I mean, obviously, you don't want to see them be enemies the rest of their lives. So it was good that they did embrace a little bit and have a little bit of a friendship. They might have gone a little bit overboard in the sense that if you want to sell a second fight, I mean, honestly, guys, what sold us on this first fight? It was the heat, right? That was a big component of this. Of course, they're great athletes and we want to see them fight, but the heat is what brought a lot of us to this card. That's going to go away now, right? Unless they just completely go heel on each other again and it restarts. But I think we've seen the peak of it getting as ugly as it's going to get. So maybe they did go a little bit overboard.
And here's another thing. If you really want to dig deep, I think Israel really enjoyed being the babyface. He got a lot of cheers. And in this fight, if he wants to pick it again, he would have to be the heel. And I don't know if he wants to go back to that because I think he really liked getting embraced. He got his respect from DDP. The crowd loved him. And, I think he realized life doesn't hinge on just wins and losses and titles. He's already a badass. He's already a Hall of Famer. But if there's going to be a few more fights out there, let's make it some good ones. What I did like was I think DDP or Israel said it that in the back. I'm gonna go to South Africa. I'd love to stop by and visit you, but make no mistake, if we fight again, I'm gonna try to kill you. I love that he said that.
Mhm.
Maybe some might not. Obviously, I don't think they're seriously gonna do that. And DDP said, "And I'm gonna try and kill you." So it looks like maybe they can collide again with that type of intensity. I love this fight. I loved it so much. They got the guys delivered, and you guys delivered. But we got to go to topic number 2, which is the rest of 305, or at least some of these top fights, because City Kickboxing went 2-1 on the main card, despite Adesanya coming up short in the main event. So let's talk about it. We'll start with the co-main event as Kai Kara France defeated Steve Erceg and is now appealing for a title shot. Yay or nay? Go start things off. So Kai Kara France, your reaction to the fight, and should he be strongly considered for a title shot?
I thought it was a good performance for him. I don't think it'll happen though, George. The thing with this division, man, it's so volatile, right? Like, wasn't that long ago that Urseg had the title shot. Muhammad's gone now. Or Mokayev, sorry, they just get rid of him. This is a very volatile division, and we really don't know what's going to happen all the time. I don't think they dislike Kai Kara France. I think he actually has a really good personality. I wish he would do more interviews, be more vocal, but I don't know that he pops the way some of these other guys pop. So to me, if I had to roll the dice there, I'd probably say he's probably going to need one more before they get to him.
I think that's fair. Danny, you agree?
Sorry, repeat that again.
About Kai Kara France, do you think he should get a title shot coming off this big win over
Right.
Steve Erceg? His argument is that split decision
Yeah.
should have gone his way against Amir Albazi, and I've been punching the clock for many years in the flyweight division. Throw me a bone type thing.
I don't hate it, and I certainly wouldn't protest, and I certainly wouldn't be complaining about it, just because the state of the UFC flyweight division, if we look at things right now, there's no clear contender. There's not a guy that I guess Kai Kara France would be skipping over. So no, I don't mind it at all. And I think this speaks about how poor, about the poor state that division finds itself in. Like none of the guys that they have sort of groomed to be like, these next contenders, next title challengers, they haven't really panned out. Like Amir Abbasi obviously dealing with injuries, Moreno taking a break from the sport. You got Manuel Capos coming off a loss. They let go of Mokaev. I mean, who is there to challenge for the belt? And there's rumors that maybe Kaya Sakura from Ryzen is going to come in and get an immediate title shot. We'll see if that's the case. I wouldn't mind it. But I think this division needs to figure itself out. There needs to be some good names with some good momentum going on, because right now, if we're speaking about Kai Kara France, who didn't fight in over a year, was coming off 2 straight losses, just got a win, and we're talking about him being the next title challenger, I'm fine with it, but I think we got some bigger problems to worry about in terms of the division.
Mm-hmm. Matt, your thoughts on Kai Kara France's performance, and is it worthy of a title shot?
It was a fantastic performance, man. It seems like I've been like on the wrong side of Kai Kara France, like picking his fights, I don't know, for all of his career for the most part. But I mean, this was a fight. I mean, you got to be impressed with it, right? Because the way Steve Erceg kind of really made a name for himself over the past year, and for Kai to just go out there and just drop him in the first round like it was pretty easy was very impressive. Like honestly, like I was really like probably the most impressive performance on the whole card for me was this. But is it title shot worthy? Because before this, he was on a 2-fight losing streak. I mean, you got to think like it definitely puts him obviously either up next or if not one more. I know a lot of people have been calling for the Kai Asakura fight since he's coming over from Ryzen. I don't know if that fight really makes all that much sense to me, but it's he's got options, I think. But yeah, he's obviously very, very close to a title shot. And I think, if you're talking about running it back with Pantoja, yeah, that fight happened, back in 2016? I mean, if that's the angle you want to run with, sure, there's been plenty of time between those 2 fights, so it would make sense in that regard. But, if he gets it, cool. If he doesn't, I mean, I'm not going to be, upset either way. I mean, a performance like that should be rewarded with something big. And if that something big is a title shot, then so be it.
Matt, I'll stay with you. Tell me about Dan Hooker against Matthias Gamrot. Gamrot was a big favorite in this fight, and Hooker nutted up, man, in front of Oceania, we'll say. He's from New Zealand. The fight took place in Australia, but it seemed like a home game for him. Gamrot was on 3 wins, 3 straight wins, and he felt like maybe he could even parlay a win over Hooker into a title shot. This was a good one.
Yeah, it was a fantastic fight. Now, this was like, if you go out of your way to see any fight on this card, it's definitely this one. This was amazing. This classic striker versus grappler. Dan Hooker just being a relentless forward marching madman with strikes and stuffing takedowns, and Gamrot getting a few and making it nasty. This fight was so fun to watch, man. Oh man, you gotta love the resurgence of Dan Hooker as well. What was it after the second round when when they put the camera in the corner and he's just laughing, saying, "I love this shit." Like, you gotta be impressed with this dude, man. His resurgence as of late is incredible. And I saw a meme floating around earlier today comparing him with Charles Oliveira. They both moved up, both dyed their hair blonde, both got tattoos everywhere, and now they're killing everybody. Pretty funny stuff, man.
Yeah, I think I'd compare him more to Charles Manson. This guy's like a serial killer. I mean, he feasts on blood and violence, but I kind of like it. Danny Hooker, man, he kind of wants to shoot for the top. He feels like now he's the number 5 fighter because he took out the number 5 fighter. These are UFC rankings. It doesn't always work that way. Hooker's also has experienced some losing, some losses and wins earlier. But what's next for Hooker in your opinion? Because he is a commodity. He re-signed with the UFC. I think the UFC loves him too.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, he's been a fan favorite for quite some time. And I agree with Matt. I do think that I saw a little bit of a resurgence on the product of Dan Hooker. He's always been a good fighter, a skilled fighter, always lingered around the top 10, top 15. And when he fought and lost to Poirier, probably that was his best career moment in terms of career momentum. I think that would have pushed him over and would have turned him into a serious title threat. But since that Poirier fight, we really haven't been able to see much of Dan Hooker, at least on a basis that promises to be a threat to the title. We've seen a fun fighter, we've seen a dangerous fighter, but not dangerous enough. And I think that changed a lot in this fight. I think the ceiling that I had put on Dan Hooker got kind of broken. And now I'm not going to say he's a future champion or anything like that, but I do think at least we should consider him for some important fights, and then we see what happens. Look, we've always known he's been a great striker. He's got power. He's got volume. He's very dangerous on the feet, but we've seen him struggle sometimes with the wrestling. I think the Islam Makhachev fight is probably the best example. But we look at what he did against Gamrot. Man, he gave him a tough outing. And remember, Gamrot not so long ago beat Arman Sarukian, and maybe a little bit controversial, but at least was giving him a tough fight in the grappling department. I think he's improved a ton in his takedown defense and his ability to get up, which was what was hindering him on being a top contender. So I'm all about him getting a big name, whether it's a Chandler rematch, a Poirier rematch, a Charles Oliveira fight, whatever it is. I do think he's deserved of an opportunity, and seeing where it goes, seeing if maybe he can still have something left in terms of title contention.
You're watching the Spinning Back Clique show. We do this every week on Mondays. Usually it's noon Eastern, but for the next 9 weeks, we're going to be doing it at 1 p.m. Eastern. It's live, and you can catch us here on Facebook through the website directly, MMA Junkie. But there's a few watching on Facebook as well. So I think I said YouTube. I don't know. Gunther Andendorf and Ahmed Maki watching through Facebook. So I wanted to give them a shout out. And again, Facebook or YouTube live. And of course, you can watch the replay on Facebook. And if you're more on the podcast side, you can always catch the podcast. It gets uploaded the following day. So many ways to catch Spinning Back Clique. It's basically the Junkie team. We rotate the names and unpack all the biggest stories from the past week. Jairzinho Rosenstruck defeated Tai Tuivasa. Goes, what's next for Jairzinho? I'm not saying he's up for a title or anything, but what would you like to see next for Biggie Boy?
Well, I think in the past, some of the criticism for him was he at times would just play to his opponent's strengths, right? I think now he's been able to dial things in a little bit. I thought it was a really good performance, really solid from him. I think he is ready to kind of take that next step up. What that could be, I don't know, maybe like a Sergey Pavlovich, someone of that stature. I think he said he believes like he's two fights away from a title shot. I probably disagree with that, especially with just how chaotic it is at the top. But I think a matchup like that would help him. But I really like where he's going. I really thought he put on a really good performance this weekend, and I'm excited to see him again.
I like that name. I think right away, sometimes when you say a name, you right away think, okay, you're thinking of the skill sets, and I think that would be a pretty good matchup. What about Tai Tuivasa, Matt? What do you do with this guy? He's 0-5, but he's pretty damn popular. Um, we're working on 2 years though since he's had his hand raised. Now heavyweight isn't the deepest division. Sometimes if you're an asset, the UFC will keep you around. I looked at his social media and he looked honest in saying that he really put in a hard camp. It's just the other guy was better.
Yeah, he's turning into a little bit of a heavyweight Tony Ferguson at this point, and you kind of hate to see it because of how much we all like him, right? He's a funny dude. You gotta like his personality, right? For the most, it's just the results are just not coming in the cage, and it seems like he did everything right this time. He went back to his camp. You can tell he put in a little bit of work. I think he showed up a little bit in better shape, and he was a little bit more patient in what was happening in the cage. But the end of the day, he just got outstruck every single round. He got outstruck, and I'm pretty sure we can talk about the scores now if you want.
Oh, Howie Booth, was that the guy's name?
Dude.
Yeah. Howie Booth, man.
How
Howie
did he
Booth
get
got the
into the
yank
booth?
after that 30-27, which was incredible. To actually hear a little bit of news come out that, yeah, he was removed from his duties in the later fights because he turned in that 30-27 score for Ty, which was incredible. Ty clearly lost every single round. It wasn't like he was badly hurt or anything, but he was clearly outstruck in every single round.
By like 3 or
30-27
4 times the amount of significant strikes.
Yeah.
I looked
Yes.
and not one outlet even had Rosenstruck 29-28, much
No.
less
I
30-27. The other was like
29-28. Tai Tuivasa was a stretch. What? Tell me what round he won because he got
Exactly,
pieced
dude.
up every single round. 30-27. Jesus. I think pulling a judge sets an ugly precedent, and I think we all feel a little bit weird about that. The fact that like you can just change the officials the night off, but damn,
Wait, you don't
seeing
like that move?
scorecard, like I totally get why, and I'm totally cool
Oh,
with that decision.
okay.
Then, but might be the worst scorecard I've ever seen in my entire time covering the sport, which it's almost a decade.
There was one with Ben Cartlidge not too long ago. It was back east, I think. That was pretty off, but this one was bad.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think was that the Sabatello fight?
What? No, at PFL?
Yeah, there was one not too long ago. I
No,
think,
this
like
was
in the
about 2 or
Bellator
3
card or
months
something
ago.
like that.
2, 3 months ago, that was pretty bad. I just can't remember what it was. But yeah, I agree with Danny. Recent memory, this one was as bad as it gets. I applaud the commission for pulling him off. It was supposed to be the Urseg and Kai Kara France fight. So they pulled him off that one. And Ben Cartlidge actually subbed in for that one. Maybe I shouldn't throw Ben's name out there for that other one because I'm not sure. But
Mhm.
Ben Cartlidge stepped in for this guy named Howie Booth, who gave a 30-27 to Tai Tuivasa. That was ridiculous, honestly. One last thing here before we move on. Danny, talk about Carlos Pratis's potential. This guy looks pretty promising.
Bro, he's legit. He's legit. I tweeted on Saturday night that he's MMA's new favorite fighter, and I mean, how can you hate on this guy? This guy's cool as he's cool as shit outside of the cage, and then once he goes in there, he's got a style that is just extremely accurate, extremely deadly, always going for the kill. What's not to like about this guy? I think he has a bright future ahead of him, not only as a contender, but also a star. I think we're looking at a guy that is going to be a popular fighter for quite some time at 170 pounds. Really enjoy everything about this dude. And let's see what happens. I want to start seeing him against some tougher opposition. Obviously, the Leech, a very respectable guy, a veteran of the sport. But, he was, look at that shot. Oh, my God. He is 36 years old, hadn't fought in a couple years. I'd like to see him against like a Kevin Holland, that type of names, fighters that are in the top 15 or maybe lingering outside in the top 20. I think that's ideal for him. But keep him in some fun fights, man. This guy's just amazing. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him.
I love your
Lennoxy,
take, Danny, but you needed to have a cigarette and throw it at the camera at the end.
Yeah, I know. This guy's asking for ciggies to reporters in the post-fight press conference. I mean, this guy's so cool, dude. You should get a cigarette sponsor or something. Can they even get sponsors? No, right? So, never mind.
Lindsay UTV or Lindsay UTV says Pratis is a problem 100. And I also love that they featured him on Embedded in Brazil, that relationship he has with his mom. That looked pretty cool, man, because it looks like he was raised by the mom and he showed her so much respect and she showed him so much love. Karate Ted Toon says everyone needs cigarettes. Long darts, baby. Lazy Bed chimes in. Let's move on, guys. This
Hey,
past week,
one thing real quick before we
go for
move
it, man.
on. Not for nothing. Newcomer of the year, this guy. That's 3 wins now. All
Mm-hmm.
stoppages.
Mm-hmm.
Practice?
Incredible
Wow.
run, yes. Debuted in February. This was his 3rd win right here. Newcomer of the year is locked up in the bag as far as I'm concerned.
Did he come
Let's see what
through
happens
Dana
because he
White
might
Contender
return in
Series?
December. If he loses, I think. But for now, yes, he's the leader in that one.
Do you have his resume up, Matt?
Yeah,
Did he come through Dana White Contender Series?
he did. He won in August against Mitch Ramirez, 2nd round stoppage.
And what are the dates of his win? I'll explain why in a second.
February 10th, June 8th, and this Saturday.
Okay, I only say because for MMA Junkie, yes, Newcomer of the Year might be sealed, but for World MMA Awards, they go from like July to the following June, so that one might be a little tougher. But yeah, I mean he's handling his business, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good stuff. Yeah, we might have already solved that award there. This past week we had some big announcements, guys. One of them, though, in particular, was huge. Alex Pereira is at it again. I'm not complaining. His fights definitely don't suck. It's just unusual for a champion to knock him down, and then before you know it, be ready to go again in a few months. Poatan is like some world championship boxer out there, or a bowler, I should say. Guys, did you expect this one? It's Alex Pereira against Khalil Rountree, October 5th, UFC 307 in Salt Lake City. Matt?
No. Simply no.
I did. I saw it coming.
Hell no. Hell no. This
Well,
was
once
not
they
on
made
my radar whatsoever.
Magomedov, once you knew Magomedov was out of the picture, what did you think they were going to do? I guess would be my next question.
I thought he was actually, I don't know, going to take a break from headlining every other card on the UFC. Like, but no,
Okay.
this was not on my radar whatsoever, man. I mean, sure, do it because I mean, Alex wants to obviously fight at any given opportunity. So okay, but yeah, this was a surprise. But I mean, I guess we get the old kickboxing style matchup, which will be entertaining for as long as it lasts. But yeah, no, this was not on my radar.
Man, I'm staying with you. This comes from Calvin Cunningham. He says, do you think Roundtree style, meaning the pace, will hurt him against Alex at SLC elevation? Remember, they're almost a mile high, too.
I don't think so. Honestly, I don't think so. I don't see this being like that high pace of a fight. I think it's going to be like they're both going to stand in front of each other. It's going to be like a Muay Thai style battle, and whoever lands that shot is going to end the fight. I don't see this going to the judges whatsoever.
Danny, your reaction to Pereira versus Roundtree. Remember, again, we can joke around and all, but what would have been the next playable piece knowing Magomed Ankalaev was going to fight at UFC 308 against Alexander Rakic, which takes him off the table too.
Yeah, I didn't see this coming at all. Just when I saw that and Kaliv got booked, I thought, okay, maybe the UFC saving him for, I don't know, a potential fight with Adesanya if he wins, or maybe seeing what happens in the heavyweight division and plug him in since there's a lot of interest around that. Never in a million years would I have thought that he was going to fight Khalil Rountree. Look, the fights on Kaliv, like what the hell did Ankalaev do to the UFC besides go to a draw with Jan Blachowicz? I think he must have done something else because at this point, it just seems personal, man. He's clearly the most deserving guy there. I think Jamal Hill had a good point. Like, how do you go from having a fight booked, popping for banned substances, and all of a sudden you're in a title fight? That to me is crazy. Also, correct me if I'm wrong. I've yet to see. Sorry, I have a hair in my mouth. I've yet to see. I've yet to see a response from the UFC in regards to how the hell is Khalil Rountree in a title fight now? Because from what I understand, we don't have a solution yet as far as his failed drug test, right? And again, we're not working here with USADA, and since we're doing the drug sport-free international, whatever, we don't have a lot of answers as to how this works. But isn't that concerning as well?
Yeah. All right, I'll try my best here, but from what I read, and this is according to Jeff Nowitzki as he relayed to Kevin Ioli, Khalil turned himself in and he brought all the receipts as far as what he had ingested. It was determined by, I guess it's called Drug Sport Free International, one of those, that and none of it was enhancing. It was very minor, and they appreciated his candor in coming forward. And Khalil actually tells the story in that the owner of the supplement company was actually at his house and observed maybe on a counter or whatever. He's like, hey, you shouldn't be taking that one. So he kind of openly tells the story. It looks like there's two fouls. One is the Nevada State Athletic Commission. The other one, I guess, is Drug Sport Free International. They gave him 2 months. I think Nevada gave him 4.5 months, which kind of seems weird because we're going back to like early May. So that 4.5 makes it convenient. It's just such an odd number that
Yeah,
he
very
will be
weird
able to
number.
fight in October. But at the same time, look, if it was 6, would that change our minds? If you think someone's a cheater, 6, 9, 12 months isn't going to change your mind. 4.5, if you're a fan that just wants to see a great fight, okay. He does have a fight win streak with 4 of them being finishes. And so on that end, not the end of the world. We stomached Steve Erceg not too long ago. He kind of had something similar, except he had 3 wins going into that fight. But it's just that he hadn't clipped any of the top dogs to get to that. And I think he hasn't been featured on many pay-per-views was another thing. So he hasn't really been before our eyes where we can say he's next. So anyway, hopefully I unpacked that whole drug stuff for you as best I could.
Okay, so that makes sense. But see, the difference with the Steve Erceg thing is that there was really nobody else, right? Sure, maybe at the time Muhammad Okaev, but now hindsight we know they were having issues and they didn't want to put him in a title fight. But dude, Ankalaev, like he's the guy, bro. Like I get this is a less exciting fight, saying the Ankalaev one, and I'm totally more excited for Khalil Rountree and Pereira than Ankalaev and Pereira. But still, this is not about just excitement. Like this, there's got to be some sporting aspect to this, right? And Ankalaev has put in the work, and I feel like he's deserving by a
I
million
agree.
miles.
I agree. I think they needed him on that Abu Dhabi card because once Makhachev was off, they needed some big names, and Hamzat
Bro,
Shemaev just
you
isn't
got
as
the BMF
reliable.
versus the featherweight champion. Yes, I know they're not from the area, but damn, like what's there to complain about? That's a big ass fight.
I think they
Mhm.
want to see a Muslim fighter as well, and Shemaev isn't as reliable. Him versus Whitaker's money, man, but he's not
I,
as reliable. That's all I can think. It's the schedule sometimes just actually presents more of the problems, but he is more deserving. I think even Roundtree would agree. But goes.
no, I was just going to say what you're saying makes a ton of sense, George. But at the end of the day, this is supposed to be a sport, and you can't do that very often, right? You don't just tell the Lakers, "Hey, we don't need you in Utah this weekend. We actually need you over in New York." And you like that's just not how sporting events work, right? This is a dude that and Goliath that put together a really good resume in a very, very tough sport. He deserved to be the guy. Now, that being said, Khalil Rountree's there. He didn't do anything wrong. I mean, like they gave him the fight. He signed. This is something he's been waiting for a long time. And I'll tell you one thing, man. Don't sleep on him, dude. Poetan is tough, tough as they come. But this guy thinks a little differently. I don't know if you guys have ever spoken to him or heard interviews with him. He is very different, and the way he approaches fights are a little different. I don't think he's going to let that get to his head. I think he has this awkward style. I agree with that. I think it was Calvin Cunningham or someone that might be a little difficult. 5 rounds in Salt Lake City, fighting the way he does. He puts so much power behind his punches. But look, it wasn't that long ago. We just talked to John Wood, and he mentioned it wasn't that long ago that they put Saki in front of him, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
gonna tell me that's not a good striker? And look what happened there, right? So anything can happen in our sport. Yes. Did he deserve to be there? Not over Ankalaev, but he does deserve to be there, I think. And I think now that he's got that opportunity, it's up to him to make the best of it. And I think he will. I think it'll. I'm not saying it's going to go his way, but I think it'll be an entertaining fight.
Francis A in the chat says we want Ankalaev versus Fajeda, but he also offers if Roundtree wins, this is a big upset. Green
Mm.
Bandana says Alex versus Khalil. I love it. And you know what, guys? I also thought, well, maybe Nikita Krylov, but he hasn't fought in almost 2 years. He's working off a 3-fight win streak, if I'm not mistaken. So Khalil eclipses him, but Krylov's he's mixed it up with top guys, whereas Roundtree hasn't. That's the only thing that bugs maybe a little, but I'm happy for the guy. And stylistically, I think it will be an exciting match. And man, do I not appreciate Alex Fajeda just always being there to rescue the promotion. Um, Two other things, if I may, I guess, just because I find this really interesting. Is this an indictment on the ladies? They can't carry the pay per view. That's why O'Malley and Marab need to highlight the Noche UFC. Don't get Danny started on that.
Mm.
He didn't like that too much. And then over
Tournament
here in Salt
insider.
Lake City, it's not a bad card if you look at it, right? Aldo's back and Kevin Holland and some other big names, but they didn't want to go with Pena and Pennington at the top. They needed to bring Pajeda and Roundtree there. So are the ladies not? We haven't found that star, I guess, or come close since Ronda Rousey?
I think they realized that that matchup didn't make any sense to begin with, giving Pena another title shot. So yeah, let's try to scramble and throw something else together, I think is what happened here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of seeing guys and ladies get title shots after a loss. Why are we doing this? There's other fighters out there that have wins, namely Kayla Harrison, who should be fighting for this title right now. I get the idea that maybe the sentiment is that they want to see Kayla prove that she can make 135 again, which, okay, I guess I could see that logic, but at the end of the day, she won her fight. Juliana Pena is coming off of a loss. I'm tired of seeing this to where, like, fighters get repeat title shots after repeat title shots just because they won the belt at one point.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think it should have been Pennington, Kayla Harrison. I think that's one, a more exciting fight, a bigger fight. There seems to be right now all the hype around Kayla Harrison, and as you mentioned, yeah, coming off a loss, like I don't think Juliana Pena was in a position to challenge for the belt. Interesting and weird decision, but who knows? We might end up with Harrison in the title fight. She did say. I spoke to her on Friday, and she did say she was open to filling in as a backup even 20 minutes before the fight if needed. So we'll wait to see what happens from here to there.
Do you guys happen to know if Kayla's already made 135 or just 136? Because that 1 pound looks like it can be painful for some of the fighters that are like jacked like Kayla, you know. But she's saying she wants to be the backup fighter. I think she could send a message if she also weighed in. Well, she has to. She wants to be the backup fighter, but that would definitely shut the UFC up in terms of, not having to sweat that.
Yeah, I think Kayla came in at 136 for UFC 300.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so for this one, she would need to come in for 135.
Correct.
To be the actual backup. And I love Danny, the fact that she's going for it.
Yep.
You know, she's not waiting for Pereira to raise her hand and say, I'll do it. She actually grabbing it by the throat, the possible opportunity and installing herself in there. So that already sets things up. She's on the same timeline as the champion. You know, she can win and call out the winner of the subsequent fight. I love the way Kayla Harrison takes control of her career. More fighters should do that. I did want to bring something up too, and not to belabor this. Let's go back to Ankalaev. And I mentioned this on a previous SBC. We have a rotating panel, though. I don't know if this is a fresh take for you guys. I'm going to use that same word again, indictment. Are the Dagestani fighters kind of getting brushed aside? I'll tell you why. Dana White, what did you think of the Bilal Muhammad Leon Edwards fight? He goes, it wasn't a barn burner. Guys, I didn't think it was bad, to tell you the truth. I thought it was exciting. I liked it. It was Mohamed Mokaev, what is he, 12-0, 13-0 overall, 7-0 in the UFC? Nah, we don't need you, right? And he even said, going back to Bilal, he's been training with Habib and those guys. And then now Ankalaev gets shoved aside. Is he just not a fan of this style? And maybe that's the UFC's way of pushing back and saying you got to be exciting, and maybe that's a shorter road to the title?
Could be. I could see some. I mean, it's definitely not a good look. You don't want to see that. Like, that's just part of the game, man. That's a facet of the sport, right? The wrestling. If you don't like it, you got to work hard and prepare for those types of things. But I don't know that you could be punishing fighters for their fighting style. That's just. I could see maybe like their road is maybe a little bit longer, a fight more than maybe somebody else who's exciting, but just all around shove somebody out of the organization or shove them away from getting title shots. I don't think that's right.
Well, I don't think they're going to shove Brendan Allen out of the organization. He got in a little bit of, I wouldn't say trouble, right? But him and Vittori were mixing it up while Danny's conducting the interview with Kayla Harrison.
I had left that. The Hard Rock has terrible Wi-Fi, and I was having some, difficulty uploading, so I left. But if I would have stuck around, if they had good Wi-Fi, I would have been able to watch that brawl.
Would you have caught up with the winner? We're here with Brendan Allen. Interview him there right by the craps table.
No, the Hard Rock doesn't let you film at the casino part, so I probably would have gotten kicked out too.
What did you guys think of that, by the way?
It's crazy.
Insane.
Michael Johnson kind of told everyone back off, like they're gonna break dance or something. He's like, get away, everyone. Yeah. And boom, he unleashes Brendan Allen on him.
It was insane. And the fact that Dana obviously responded on Twitter, I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, if you want to respond to it, like, you're the CEO of the UFC and you're using that as an opportunity to trash another organization and say, hey, maybe my fighters shouldn't be doing this in public.
Yeah.
I'm a little shocked because George, you and I were here in Vegas. Like, you can't get a big crowd like that together without security being there within seconds, right? It
Mhm.
seemed like they were there for a while, Danny. Like, you were in the vicinity. Did they not know this was gonna go on? Like, I mean,
Florida,
how was
baby.
there not more
It's
security there to
Florida,
stop
bro.
that?
You go to the Hard Rock, you see crazy shit happen all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, just it happens. It
I'm surprised they didn't shoot each other. Florida is nutty.
is a crazy
Stand
place.
your ground, right?
I've
Yeah.
seen fights at the Hard Rock. I've seen a good amount of fights, usually involving old men, not two professional fighters, but
In the arena or in the casino?
in the casino.
Wow. Over what?
Honestly, I don't even know. It's just a dispute. People are drunk. I don't know.
I love Trump more than you do. No, I don't. You do.
Yeah, that's probably what it is.
That's all I can think of. All right, guys. Listen, great stuff here from Danny Segura. Catch his show, Hablemos MMA. For those of you that speak Spanish, he interviews fighters and does recaps of events. Hablemos MMA on YouTube. Matt Wells from the editorial side. Always great to get your takes here on Spinning Back Click. A shout out again to Kamikaze filling in for Cold Coffee. Kamikaze is the one that gives us that cool graphic art every week here for Spinning Back Click, and of course, Goes from MMA Junkie Radio. The comments, folks, were great this week. Tell a friend, won't you? You know, the same way you participated, we shouted your name out. Share that. You can catch it on Facebook or on YouTube or podcast style, you know, via our platform is Omni, but you can get it from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Share it with a friend, and let me please make this plea to you. It's the algorithm, but hit that like button on the way out, and why not subscribe to the channel because there's a lot of free content. Don't forget tomorrow's Dana White Contender Series. You'll see the weigh-ins. If you missed them, they're already going to be uploaded for you to check out so you can see who's weighing in for tomorrow's 5 fights. And then we got PFL on Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern start time. If you want to catch the semifinals of the welterweights and the featherweights, Brendan Loughnane headlining the top of the card there. And then on Saturday, it's a late one. The main card starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 Pacific. Main event, Jared Cannonier against Kyle Barallo, and we will be covering both events. So check it out. Folks, we'll see you all next week. Go out and be a champion. We really appreciate your support.